Jake Martinez walked through the long hallways of the Galactic Academy for Advanced Species. His sneakers made soft sounds on the shiny metal floor. Students from many different worlds stopped talking when they saw him. Some pointed at him with fingers, claws, or tentacles. Others whispered to their friends in languages that sounded like music, buzzing, or clicking sounds. The human teenager did not notice how scared the other students looked. He was too busy looking at everything around him. The walls showed moving pictures of space and distant planets. Plants from hundreds of worlds grew in special cases along the corridors. Some plants glowed with soft light. Others moved like they were dancing even though there was no wind. Jake stopped at a water fountain that could give drinks to many different types of beings. A small blue creature with 6 eyes was getting a drink that looked like purple mist. When the creature saw Jake, all 6 eyes went wide. It made a high sound like a whistle and ran away on its tiny legs. That was weird, Jake said to himself. He got some water and kept walking. Principal Vextar stood in her office watching Jake through the big window. She was tall and thin like a crystal statue. Her skin looked like it was made of clear glass with lights moving inside. She had been the principal of this school for 50 years. In all that time, she had never been so worried about one student. The files about humans made scary reading. Earth was called a Class 12 Deathworld. That meant it was one of the most dangerous places to live in the known galaxy. The air had poison gases that most species could not breathe. The gravity was so strong it would crush the bones of many aliens. The weather could change from burning hot to freezing cold in just one day. But the worst part was the life on Earth. The plants and animals there had to fight to stay alive every single day. Humans were predators. They hunted other animals for food. They could run for hours without stopping. They could lift things many times their own weight. Their bodies could heal from wounds that would kill most other species. How did we agree to let one of them come here? Vextar asked herself. 3 months ago, the Galactic Council had started a new program. They wanted students from different worlds to learn about each other. The council said this would help create peace in the galaxy. Most schools got students from nice, safe worlds. The Galactic Academy got the human. Jake found his first classroom and walked inside. 24 students sat at curved desks. They all turned to look at him. Jake smiled and waved. "Hi, everyone. I'm Jake. Nice to meet you all." His voice was deeper than most of the aliens expected. Several students in the front row moved their chairs back a few inches. Ms. Zilara was the teacher. She looked like a very tall cat that could walk on 2 legs. Her fur was silver and her eyes were bright green. She had been teaching for 30 years, but she had never been this nervous about a new student. "Welcome, Jake," she said. Her voice shook a little. "Please take the empty seat in the back." Jake walked between the rows of desks. As he passed, students pulled in their arms, wings, and tentacles. A small group of fairy-like creatures called Valdorians made scared squeaking sounds. Their teacher had told them that humans were apex predators. That meant humans were the most dangerous hunters on their world. Jake sat down next to a rock-like student named Gorks. Gorks was from a world where beings were made of living stone. They were known for being very strong and hard to hurt. But even Gorks seemed nervous around the human. "Cool skin," Jake said to Gorks. "It looks like granite. Is it hard like rock too?" Gorks made a deep rumbling sound that meant surprise in his language. The human was asking friendly questions. The files had said humans were aggressive and violent. This one seemed nice. "Yes," Gorks said slowly. "My people are made of mineral compounds. We are very durable." "That's awesome," Jake said. "I bet you never have to worry about getting hurt." Other students listened to this conversation. They were confused. The human was being polite and interested. He did not seem like the dangerous predator they had been warned about. Mrs. Ilara started the lesson about galactic history. She talked about how different species had learned to live together in peace. Jake listened and took notes like any normal student. But the other students could not stop watching him. When Jake moved his hand to write, the muscles in his arm showed under his skin. The Valdorians had never seen muscles that big. Their own arms were thin and weak like flower stems. They used their wings to do most of their work. When Jake yawned, the students saw his teeth. Humans had teeth for cutting and tearing. Most species in the class only ate plants or energy. Their teeth were small and flat. Jake's teeth looked like they were made for eating meat. At lunchtime, Jake went to the cafeteria. The food machines could make meals for any species. Jake ordered something that looked like a sandwich with meat and vegetables. Most of the aliens in the cafeteria ate things that looked like colored light or sweet-smelling gases. Jake sat at an empty table. No one came to sit with him. He ate his lunch and looked around at all the different types of students. There were beings made of water in special suits. There were creatures that looked like walking trees. Some students floated in the air instead of sitting in chairs. This place is amazing, Jake thought. He had grown up in a small town in Arizona. He had never imagined he would see so many different types of life. After lunch, Jake had science class. The teacher, Dr. Corwin, looked like a giant brain with tentacles. He was very smart, but also very worried about having a human in class. Today we will study gravity, Dr. Corwin announced. Different worlds have different levels of gravitational force. He showed pictures of various planets on the big screen. Earth appeared with its information. The gravity was listed as 9.8 meters per second squared. This is considered very high gravity, Dr. Corwin explained. Most civilized worlds have gravity between 2 and 4 meters per second squared. The students looked at Jake with new understanding. He lived in gravity that was 3 times stronger than what they were used to. That meant his muscles had to be 3 times stronger just to move around normally. How do you not get crushed? Asked a student who looked like a jellyfish. Jake laughed. You get used to it, I guess. I never really thought about it. The idea that Jake had never thought about living in such extreme conditions made the aliens even more amazed. To them, surviving on Earth would be like living inside a crushing machine. To Jake, it was just normal life. As the day ended, word spread through the school's communication systems. Tomorrow, the human would have physical education class. Students began making plans to watch from safe distances. Teachers held emergency meetings to discuss safety procedures. Jake walked back to his dormitory room, still not understanding why everyone seemed so afraid of him. He was just a regular teenager who happened to come from Earth. He had no idea that tomorrow would change everything at the Galactic Academy. News traveled fast through the Galactic Academy. By morning, every student knew that Jake Martinez would be taking gym class. The school's communication network buzzed with messages. Students who had never cared about sports suddenly wanted to see what would happen. In the cafeteria at breakfast, groups of aliens whispered to each other. The Valdorians sat together in a tight group, their fairy wings trembling with fear. They had spent all night reading about human physical abilities. The information they found made them more scared. Humans can run for 26 miles without stopping, one Valdorian said to her friends. They call it a marathon. They do it for fun. I read that they can jump their own height, said another, and they can lift objects that weigh more than they do. A group of Etherians floated nearby. These beings looked like they were made of mist and light. They could move through solid objects, but they were very fragile. The idea of being near a human during physical activity terrified them. What if he doesn't know how strong he is? One Etherian asked. What if he accidentally hurts someone? Jake sat alone at his table eating eggs and toast. He could hear the whispers around him, but he could not understand most of the alien languages. He thought the other students were just excited about gym class. Jake had always enjoyed sports back on Earth. Lisa Park walked into the cafeteria. She was another human exchange student who had arrived at the academy 1 week before Jake. She was smaller than Jake and had black hair tied in a ponytail. When the aliens saw her, they became quiet. Lisa got her breakfast and sat down next to Jake. The aliens at nearby tables leaned forward to listen to what the 2 humans would say to each other. Hey Jake, Lisa said. How are you liking the school so far? It's incredible, Jake replied. I've never seen so many different types of people. Everyone here is so interesting. Have you noticed how they all seem scared of us? Lisa asked quietly. Jake looked around the cafeteria. Now that Lisa mentioned it, he could see that other students were keeping their distance. When he looked at them, they quickly looked away. Why would they be scared? Jake asked. We haven't done anything wrong. I think it's because we're from Earth, Lisa explained. They call it a death world. They think we're dangerous, Jake laughed. That's silly. We're just normal people. A group of Valdorians heard Jake laugh. The sound was deeper and louder than they expected. They jumped up from their table and flew away quickly. See what I mean? Lisa said. After breakfast, Jake went to his morning classes. In each room, he noticed that students sat farther away from him than they had the day before. His teachers seemed nervous when they called on him to answer questions. In history class, Miss Zilara was teaching about the Great Peace Treaty. This was an agreement that had stopped wars between different species 200 years ago. The treaty said that all intelligent life forms should live together without fighting. The treaty was possible because most species had evolved past violence, Ms. Zilara explained. We learned to solve problems with words instead of fighting. She looked at Jake when she said this. Jake was taking notes and did not notice her worried expression. During the break between classes, students gathered in small groups to talk about the afternoon gym class. The viewing gallery above the gymnasium was usually empty during sports activities. Today it was filling up with students who wanted to watch the human in action. Some teachers tried to discourage students from watching. They were worried that seeing human physical abilities might cause panic. But the students were too curious to stay away. Coach Tharik spent his lunch break in his office reading everything he could find about human sports and exercise. Tharik was a Gronthian, which meant he looked like a giant bear with 4 arms. His species was known for being tough and strong, but the information about humans made even him nervous. Humans, he learned, had something called adrenaline. This chemical could make them temporarily stronger and faster when they were excited or scared. They also had very efficient hearts and lungs that could pump blood and oxygen to their muscles for long periods. Coach Tharik had sent 3 official requests to the school administration. He wanted to excuse Jake from gym class to protect the other students. Each time his request was denied. The Diversity Council said that all students must be treated equally. But what if someone gets hurt? Coach Tharik had asked. Then we will learn from the experience, Principal Vextar had replied. As the afternoon approached, the medical bay prepared for possible emergencies. Dr. Silvar, the head medical officer, made sure they had supplies ready for many different types of injuries. She had never treated a human before and was not sure what to expect. The gymnasium was the largest room in the academy. It had been built to accommodate sports and activities for many different species. The floor could change from soft grass to hard metal depending on what was needed. The ceiling was high enough for flying species to practice aerial maneuvers. Students from Jake's gym class began to arrive early. They stood together in nervous groups, watching the doors for the human to arrive. The viewing gallery above was packed with observers. Veltar was a centaurian, which meant he looked like a tall, thin horse that could walk on 2 legs. His species were natural athletes, known throughout the galaxy for their grace and speed. Even Veltar seemed worried about exercising with a human. Maybe he will be gentle with us, Veltar said to his friend Kess. Kess was an Aquarian who lived in a special water-filled suit. Her people were excellent swimmers but not very strong on land. I hope so, she said. I have heard that humans are competitive. They always want to win. Gorks, the rock-like student who sat next to Jake in classes, was also in the gym class. His people were the strongest species most aliens had ever met. But he had read that humans could break rocks with their bare hands when they were properly trained. Perhaps the human will be different from what we expect, Gork said in his deep, rumbling voice. The other students looked at him hopefully. They wanted to believe that Jake would be calm and careful during their exercise time. Lisa Park arrived at the gymnasium early. She wanted to talk to the other students before Jake got there. She could see how scared they all were. Listen, she said to the group. Jake is really nice. He would never hurt anyone on purpose. Humans aren't actually dangerous to be around. The Valdorians flew up to the ceiling to get away from her. Even Lisa, who was smaller and seemed friendlier than Jake, made them nervous. But you are predators, one Etherian said. Your species hunts and kills other animals. How can we trust you? We don't hunt people, Lisa explained. We only hunted animals for food, and most of us don't even do that anymore. We get our food from stores now. This explanation did not make the aliens feel much better. The fact that humans had been hunters at all was frightening to species that had always been peaceful. Coach Tharik entered the gymnasium carrying a tablet with his lesson plans. He had spent hours preparing activities that he hoped would be safe with a human participant. Today's plan was simple obstacle courses and team exercises, nothing too competitive or aggressive. Today we will work on cooperation and personal fitness, he announced to the class. Remember, this is not about winning or being the best. It is about learning to work together. The coach's forearms gestured toward the equipment area. He had set up a basic obstacle course with soft padding everywhere. There were small hurdles to step over, a low climbing wall, and balance beams close to the ground. Just then, Jake walked into the gymnasium. He was wearing the standard Academy sports uniform, a simple blue shirt and shorts. He looked around at all the equipment with interest. "This looks fun," Jake said with a smile. The sound of his voice echoed through the large room. In the viewing gallery above, several students pressed against the windows to get a better look at the human. Jake did not notice the cameras that had been set up to record the class. He did not see the medical team standing ready nearby. He had no idea that this gym class would be talked about throughout the galaxy for years to come. Coach Tharik took a deep breath and prepared to begin the most important physical education class of his career. Coach Tharik divided the students into teams of 4. He tried to put Jake with the strongest students he could find. Jake's team included Gorks the rock-like mineralian, Veltar the graceful centaurian, and Kess the Aquarian in her water suit. This should be safe, the coach thought to himself. These 3 can handle whatever the human might do. The first team to go was made up of Valdorians. These fairy-like beings approached the obstacle course like it was made of dangerous traps. They flew carefully through each section, their tiny wings beating fast. They floated over the hurdles instead of jumping. They used their natural flying ability to reach the top of the climbing wall. The balance beam was easy for them because they could hover just above it. The watching students in the gallery relaxed a little. The course looked simple and safe. Maybe having a human participate would not be so scary after all. The second team included Etherians. These mist-like beings had their own way of dealing with obstacles. They simply moved through solid objects like they were not there. The hurdles, climbing wall, and balance beam meant nothing to creatures who could become non-solid whenever they wanted. "Very good," Coach Tharik said, making notes on his tablet. "Remember, the goal is to challenge yourselves within your abilities." The third team was made up of Aquarians. Kess's people were excellent in water, but had trouble with land-based activities. They moved slowly and carefully through each obstacle. Their water-filled suits made them heavy and awkward on dry ground. But they completed the course without any problems. "Jake's team, you are next," Coach Tharik announced. Jake stepped up to the starting line with his teammates. He looked at the obstacle course and started to stretch. He reached down and touched his toes easily. Then he grabbed his foot and pulled it up behind him to stretch his leg muscles. In the viewing gallery, students gasped. Jake's joints moved in ways that looked impossible. When he rolled his shoulders, his bones made popping sounds that echoed through the quiet gymnasium. 3 Valdorians fainted from fear. "Is he broken?" whispered an Etherian. "Those sounds mean his body is damaged." "No," Lisa called out from where she sat in the gallery. "He's just stretching. Humans do that before they exercise." But her explanation did not calm anyone down. The idea that Jake was preparing his body for physical activity made them more nervous. Gorks, Veltar, and Kess stood next to Jake at the starting line. They could feel the tension in the air. Even though they were supposedly the toughest students in the class, they felt small next to the human. "Ready?" Coach Tharik asked. His voice was not as steady as usual. "Ready," Jake said with a smile. The starting signal sounded. Jake exploded forward like he had been shot from a cannon. While his teammates carefully approached the first set of hurdles, Jake simply leaped over the entire section in one jump. His legs pushed him through the air in a way that seemed to ignore gravity. The students in the viewing gallery pressed against the windows. They could not believe what they were seeing. The human had just jumped farther than most of them could run. Jake landed softly on the other side of the hurdles and turned back to encourage his teammates. "Come on, guys, you're doing great." Gorks was slowly stepping over each hurdle. His rock-like body was strong but not very flexible. Veltar was jumping gracefully from hurdle to hurdle with his long legs. Kess was walking around the hurdles because jumping was too hard in her water suit. The second obstacle was a climbing wall about 10 feet high. It was designed to test problem-solving and careful movement. Students were supposed to study the handholds and plan their route before climbing. Jake looked at the wall for about 2 seconds. Then he ran straight at it and went up like a spider. His hands and feet found holds that other students had not even noticed. He reached the top in less than 10 seconds and flipped over the edge like it was nothing. "How is that possible?" Dr. Corwin asked from the viewing gallery. The gravitational resistance alone should make such movement impossible. Other teachers had no answer. They watched Jake drop down the other side of the wall and start doing jumping jacks while he waited for his teammates. Gorks was still studying the climbing wall. His people were methodical and careful.
They did not like to move fast or take risks.
Feltar had started climbing using his natural grace, but he was taking his time to be safe. Kes was having trouble because her water suit made it hard to grip the holds. "Take your time," Jake called up to them. "There's no rush." The third obstacle was a balance beam. It was about 6 inches wide and 12 feet long, positioned 3 feet off the ground. Students were supposed to walk across it slowly and carefully. Jake ran across the balance beam like it was a sidewalk. Halfway across, he started juggling 3 rubber balls he had picked up from a nearby exercise station. He was juggling and running on a narrow beam at the same time, and he made it look easy. The sound of balls being caught and thrown echoed through the silent gymnasium. Every student was watching with their mouth, beak, or breathing hole wide open. Jake finished crossing the beam and started doing tricks with the balls. He threw them behind his back and caught them. He threw them high in the air and spun around before catching them, all while standing on one foot on the narrow beam. "Is he showing off?" Feltar asked Gorks. "I think he is just having fun," Gorks replied, "but his idea of fun is terrifying." Dr. Silvar, the medical officer, was taking readings with her equipment. Jake's heart rate was barely elevated. His breathing was normal. According to her instruments, the human was not even working hard. "This is impossible," she said to her assistant. "He is performing at levels that should require maximum effort, but his body shows no stress." Coach Tariq was frantically taking notes. Every assumption he had made about physical education was being challenged. The human was rewriting the rules of what was possible. Jake finished the obstacle course and jogged back to check on his teammates. He was not tired or out of breath. In fact, he seemed more energetic than when he had started. "Need any help?" he asked Kes, who was struggling with the balance beam. "I am fine," Kes said quickly. She did not want the human to touch her. His hands looked strong enough to crush her water suit. "Okay, but let me know if you want a spot," Jake said. Spotting was when one person helped another person balance during exercise. It was a normal thing for humans to do, but the aliens did not understand. Jake sat down on the gym floor and started doing sit-ups while he waited. He did them fast and easy, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Each time he sat up, the muscles in his stomach showed through his shirt. The Valdorians in the viewing gallery were crying with fear. They had never seen muscles that big and obvious. Their own bodies were soft and delicate like flower petals. "How many can he do?" whispered a student. Jake did 50 sit-ups, then switched to push-ups. He did those just as easily. Then he stood up and started stretching again, bending his body in ways that looked like he had no bones. By the time his teammates finished the obstacle course, Jake had done a complete workout. He was still not tired. He was still smiling and encouraging others. "Great job, everyone," Jake said as Kes finally completed the balance beam. "That was fun." Coach Tharek looked at his notes. The human had completed the obstacle course in about 1 minute. The next fastest time was 15 minutes. Jake had then done extra exercises that would have exhausted most species. "What do we do now?" the coach asked himself. In the viewing gallery, emergency meetings were being called. Parents from across the galaxy were sending panicked messages to the school. The footage of Jake's performance was already spreading through the Galactic Communication Network. Principal Vextar watched from her office through the security cameras. She knew that this moment would change everything at the Galactic Academy. The question was whether it would change things for better or worse. Jake looked around at his classmates and teachers. He could see that something was wrong, but he did not understand what. To him, he had just done some light exercise. He had no idea that he had just demonstrated abilities that most of the galaxy thought were impossible. "Is there more to do?" Jake asked Coach Thurick. "I'm just getting warmed up." The coach's forearms shook as he realized that what they had just seen was only the beginning. News of Jake's performance spread through the academy faster than light could travel between stars. Students who had watched from the viewing gallery rushed to tell their friends. Within an hour, every being in the school knew about the human's incredible display of physical ability. In the Valdorian dormitory, students huddled together in their tiny beds. Their fairy-like wings trembled as they shared what they had seen. Pip, one of the students who had watched the gym class, could barely speak. He moved like gravity did not affect him, Pip whispered to her roommates. He jumped over obstacles that should have required flying. And he was not even trying hard. The Valdorians came from a world where the strongest creature was about as dangerous as a butterfly on Earth. They had never seen anything move with such raw power and control. What if he gets angry? Asked another Valdorian named Zara. What if he decides he does not like us? The questions had no good answers. The Valdorians spent the night taking turns watching the door, afraid that the human might come looking for them. In the Etherian quarters, students floated nervously through their misty chambers. These beings could become non-solid to avoid danger, but they had never faced a threat like Jake before. Did you see how fast he moved? Asked an Etherian named Wisp. He could probably catch us even if we tried to phase through walls. And his endurance, added another student called Drift. He did all that exercise and was not even breathing hard. How is that possible? The Etherians had always felt safe because they could escape from any physical threat. But Jake's speed and apparent limitless energy made them question whether they could really get away from a human. Meanwhile, in the Academy's communication center, messages poured in from across the galaxy. Parents, government officials, and news reporters all wanted to know about the human student who had demonstrated impossible physical abilities. The communication officer, a multi-tentacled being named Flux, could barely keep up with all the incoming calls. His tentacles moved frantically over the control panels as he tried to route messages to the right departments. Principal Vextar, Flux called through the intercom. We have the Valdorian ambassador on line 1, the Etherian Council on line 2, and the Galactic News Network on line 3. They all want to speak with you immediately. Principal Vextar sat in her crystal chair, feeling older than her 200 years. Through her office window, she could see students moving in nervous groups across the academy grounds. Some were leaving early to go home to their families. The door to her office chimed and Dr. Corwin entered. The brain-like scientist's tentacles were wrapped tightly around a data tablet, which meant he was very upset. Principal Vextar, Dr. Corwin said, I have been analyzing the footage from the gymnasium. The human's performance defies several laws of physics as we understand them. Explain, the principal said. According to our calculations, the energy required for his jumping ability should have damaged his skeletal structure. The speed of his movements should have caused muscular tears. And his endurance levels suggest a cardiovascular system that is impossibly efficient. Dr. Corwin showed her his tablet. It was covered with equations and measurements that made no sense. What are you saying? Principal Vextar asked. I am saying that humans may be far more advanced than we realized. Their physical capabilities suggest evolutionary development beyond anything in our databases. This news made the principal even more worried. If humans were more advanced than expected, what did that mean for the rest of the galaxy? In the medical bay, Dr. Silvar was reviewing the readings she had taken during Jake's exercise. Her instruments had measured his vital signs throughout the obstacle course. The results were unlike anything in medical literature. His baseline heart rate is slower than most species during rest, she told her assistant. But when he exercises, his heart can speed up to rates that would kill other beings. Then it returns to normal within minutes. How is his body not damaged by such extreme changes? The assistant asked. I have no idea, Dr. Silvar admitted. Human physiology appears to be designed for levels of stress that would destroy other life forms. She looked at the medical files for other students. The Valdorians had heart rates that never varied by more than 10 beats per minute. The Etherians had no traditional hearts at all. Even Gorks, whose rock-like body was incredibly durable, had strict limits on how much stress he could handle. Schedule an appointment with the human, Dr. Silvar decided. I need to examine him and understand how his body works. Back in the gymnasium, Coach Tharik stood alone among the obstacle course equipment. He was trying to understand what he had witnessed. In 50 years of teaching physical education, he had never seen anything like Jake's performance. The coach picked up one of the rubber balls that Jake had been juggling. It was a standard exercise ball weighing about 2 pounds. Jake had thrown these balls 20 feet in the air while running on a balance beam. The coordination required was beyond anything the coach thought possible. Coach Tharik tried to throw the ball as high as Jake had. Even with his 4 arms and considerable strength, he could not match what the human had done with casual ease. How do I teach a class with a student like that? He wondered aloud. Lisa Park found Jake in the student lounge after dinner. He was sitting alone, reading a book about galactic history. When she sat down next to him, other students in the lounge quietly moved to tables farther away. How was your first gym class? Lisa asked. It was great, Jake said with enthusiasm. The equipment here is really interesting. And my teammates were nice, even though they seemed kind of nervous. Lisa looked around the lounge. Students were whispering and pointing at Jake. Some were taking pictures with their communication devices. Jake, Lisa said carefully, do you realize that everyone is scared of you now? Jake looked up from his book, confused. Scared? Why would they be scared? Because of what you did in gym class. They've never seen anyone move like that before. I was just exercising, Jake said. I didn't even work up a sweat. That's exactly the problem, Lisa explained. To them, what you did looked impossible. They think you're some kind of super being. Jake laughed, but his laughter made nearby students jump. They had never heard a sound that deep and powerful from someone who was supposed to be relaxed and happy. That's ridiculous, Jake said. I'm just a normal guy. Back home, I wasn't even the best athlete in my school. This comment, which Jake meant to be reassuring, had the opposite effect on any aliens who overheard it. If Jake was not considered athletic by human standards, what were the truly athletic humans capable of? You need to be more careful, Lisa warned. These people come from worlds where the most dangerous thing is a strong breeze. They've never seen a predator species before. But I'm not dangerous, Jake protested. I know that, and you know that, Lisa said. But they don't know that. To them, you're a creature from their worst nightmares come to life. That evening, emergency meetings were held throughout the academy. The faculty gathered in the main conference room to discuss what to do about their human student. Perhaps we should send him home, suggested Ms. Zillara, for the safety of the other students. That would violate the Diversity Education Agreement, Principal Vextar pointed out. We committed to hosting students from different worlds for the full semester, but we did not know what we were agreeing to, Coach Tharek said. The files about humans did not mention abilities like this, Dr. Corwin spoke up. I think we should study him. This could be the most important scientific discovery in galactic history. He is not a laboratory specimen, Dr. Silvar said firmly. He is a student and he deserves to be treated like one. The debate continued late into the night. Some teachers wanted Jake removed from the school. Others wanted to restrict his activities. A few thought they should try to understand and work with his abilities. Meanwhile, Jake was in his dormitory room, video calling his family on Earth. He told them about his classes, his new alien friends, and how much he was enjoying the academy. Everyone here is so interesting, Jake said to his parents. I'm learning so much about different cultures and ways of life. His parents smiled and told him they were proud of him. They had no idea that their son had accidentally become the most famous and feared student in the galaxy. As Jake settled into bed that night, he could hear strange sounds in the hallway outside his room. Students were whispering in their various languages. Some were posting guards at their doors. Others were making plans to transfer to different schools. Jake fell asleep easily, tired from his day of classes and exercise. He had no idea that across the academy, hundreds of alien students were lying awake in fear, wondering what the dangerous human would do next. The next morning, Principal Vextar called an emergency assembly. For the first time in the academy's 300-year history, every student, teacher, and staff member was required to attend a special meeting about cultural understanding. The great auditorium filled with beings from across the galaxy. Valdorians fluttered nervously near the ceiling. Etherians floated in misty clusters. Aquarians rolled in on their water-filled mobility chairs. Everyone whispered about the human who had changed everything with one gym class. Jake walked into the auditorium with Lisa. He was surprised to see that someone had saved seats for them in the very front row. He did not realize that other students had left those seats empty because they were afraid to sit too close to him. I wonder what this is about, Jake said to Lisa as they sat down. Lisa had a pretty good idea, but she just smiled and said, I guess we'll find out. Principal Vextar stood at the podium. Her crystal-like form caught the light and sent rainbow patterns across the walls. She looked out at the hundreds of faces, tentacles, and optical sensors pointed toward her. Students and faculty, she began. Yesterday's events in the gymnasium have created some misunderstandings about our human exchange students. Today we will learn about the reality of human life and culture. A large screen descended from the ceiling. It showed pictures of Earth taken from space. The planet looked blue and green with white clouds swirling around it. This is Earth, Principal Vextar explained. It is classified as a Class 12 death world, but what does that really mean? Dr. Corwin stepped up to the podium. His brain-like form pulsed with different colors as he spoke. A death world is simply a planet where life must constantly adapt to survive. This creates beings who are more physically capable than those from safer worlds. Pictures of Earth's environment appeared on the screen. There were images of mountains, oceans, deserts, and forests. To the alien students, these places looked incredibly dangerous. The gravity on Earth is 9.8 meters per second squared. Dr. Corwin continued. This means that humans develop strong bones and muscles just from normal daily life. What we saw yesterday was not superhuman ability. It was normal human physical development. A Valdorian student raised her tiny hand. But he moved so fast and jumped so high. How is that normal? Dr. Corwin showed a video of human children playing on a playground. The alien students watched in amazement as 5-year-old humans ran, jumped, and climbed with ease. Human children routinely perform physical activities that would challenge adult members of most species, Dr. Corwin explained. This is because their world requires such abilities for basic survival. Jake was learning things about himself that he had never thought about before. He had always assumed that everyone could do the things he could do. The idea that his normal abilities were unusual to others was strange to him. Furthermore, Dr. Corwin continued, humans have evolved remarkable cardiovascular and muscular systems. They can regulate their body temperature, heal from injuries, and maintain energy levels in ways that most species cannot. The screen showed medical diagrams of human anatomy. The alien students stared at pictures of human hearts, lungs, and muscle fibers. Everything about human biology seemed designed for extreme performance. But are they violent? Asked an Etherian student. The database says they are predators. Dr. Silvar, the medical officer, stepped forward to answer. Humans did evolve as hunters, but they also evolved strong social bonds. They are cooperative predators who work together and care for their group members. She showed pictures of human families, schools, and communities. The aliens saw humans helping each other, teaching children and taking care of elderly or sick people. Violence in humans is mostly directed toward protecting their social groups, Dr. Silvar explained. Within their communities, they are typically gentle and supportive. Jake was asked to come up to the podium. As he stood up, several students in the audience moved back in their seats. He walked to the front of the auditorium, his footsteps echoing in the quiet space. Hi everyone, Jake said into the microphone. His voice carried easily through the large room without electronic amplification. I know there's been some confusion about me and Lisa. He looked out at hundreds of alien faces. Some looked scared. Others looked curious. A few looked friendly. I want you to know that I would never hurt anyone, Jake continued. Where I come from, we have a saying. With great power comes great responsibility. That means if you're strong, it's your job to protect people who are weaker, not to hurt them. A Valdorian student called out, but what if you get angry? What if you lose control? Jake smiled. That's a good question. Humans do get angry sometimes, but we learn to control our emotions. We have sports and exercise to help us release energy safely, and we have laws and social rules that teach us right from wrong. What about competition? Asked a Centaurian. We heard that humans are very competitive. We are, Jake admitted. But competition doesn't mean hurting others. It means trying to be the best version of yourself. In sports, we compete to improve and to push each other to do better. Lisa joined Jake at the podium. Jake is actually one of the gentlest people I know, she said. He volunteers at animal shelters and helps younger kids with their homework. That's what most humans are really like. Dr. Corwin showed more videos of human activities. There were clips of humans playing musical instruments, creating art, and working together on scientific projects. The aliens began to see that humans were more than just physical abilities. Humans have also developed remarkable creativity and problem-solving skills, Dr. Corwin explained. Their challenging environment has made them innovative and adaptable. Over the following days, the atmosphere at the academy began to change. Students started approaching Jake with questions instead of running away from him. They wanted to know about Earth, human culture, and what it was like to live on a death world. Gorks, Jake's rocky teammate from gym class, was the first to ask Jake to teach him some human exercises. I want to see if I can improve my physical abilities, Gork said. Jake was happy to help. He showed Gorks how to do push-ups and sit-ups in ways that worked with his mineral-based body structure. Soon, other students wanted to learn too. Lisa and Jake started a club called Earth Culture Exchange. They taught interested aliens about human music, food, games, and traditions. The club met twice a week in one of the smaller auditoriums. The first meeting attracted only 5 brave students. By the 4th week, they had to move to a larger room to accommodate everyone who wanted to attend. Jake taught the aliens how to play simple human games like tag and hide and seek. These games had to be modified for different species. Flying students had different rules than walking students. Non-solid students needed special guidelines. The important thing is to have fun and be safe, Jake explained as he organized a multi-species game of Capture the Flag. Lisa taught cooking classes where aliens could try human foods that were safe for their biology. She made simple things like fruit salad and vegetable soup. The students were amazed that humans ate such a variety of different foods. On my world, we only consume light energy, said an Etherean student named Glow. I had no idea that eating solid matter could taste good. Coach Tharik completely redesigned his physical education curriculum. He created different activity levels for different species. Students could choose exercises appropriate for their abilities and comfort levels. Jake became a volunteer assistant, helping other students with activities that were challenging for them, but easy for him. He was patient and encouraging, never making anyone feel bad about their limitations. Remember, Jake would say during class, everyone is good at different things. You don't have to be strong to be valuable. The Valdorians discovered that while they couldn't match Jake's strength, their flying abilities were amazing to humans. Jake spent hours watching them perform aerial dances that he could never do. That's incredible, Jake told Pip after watching her perform a complex flying routine. I wish I could move like that. The comment surprised Pip. She had spent weeks being afraid of Jake's abilities. She had never considered that he might admire hers. Word of the changes at the Galactic Academy spread throughout the galaxy. Other schools began requesting human exchange students. The Galactic Council started developing new programs to bring together species with different abilities and backgrounds. Principal Vextar received communications from university researchers who wanted to study the Academy's integration success. News reporters requested interviews about the human integration miracle. But for Jake, the most important changes were personal. He had gone from being feared and avoided to being accepted and valued. Students now sat with him at lunch. They asked him questions about Earth and humans. They included him in their study groups and social activities. I never expected to make so many friends here, Jake told his parents during one of his weekly video calls home. Everyone is so different, but once you get to know them, they're all really nice. At the end of the semester, the Academy held its annual award ceremony. Jake was surprised when Principal Vextar called his name for a special recognition. Jake Martinez, she announced, receives the first ever Cross-Species Understanding Award for showing us that our differences make us stronger, not more dangerous.